Saloni,
Yes, sir.
we can start now.
Okay, sir. On behalf of the Indian Institute of Mass Communication, I, Saloni Seni, extend a very warm welcome to this week's Friday dialogue on India's preparedness in the age of information warfare. The initiative conceptualized by DG IIMC, Professor Dr. Sanjay Dwivedi, to offer out-of-classroom perspective to students on the issues which are not normally discussed in the classroom. My sincere gratitude to Major General Dhruv C. Katoch, Director, India Foundation, New Delhi, Professor Dr. Sanjay Dwivedi, Director General, IIMC, who has been a constant guiding force behind all the endeavors being carried out at the IIMC. Shri Ashish Goyal, Additional Director General, IIMC, for his constant support and encouragement. Professor Dr. Pramod Kumar, Dean Students Welfare, all faculty members, supporting staff, and students across all courses and centers. December 16th is commemorated as Vijay Divas to mark the end of the 1971 Indo-Pak War and the liberation of Bangladesh. India declared victory on this day 51 years ago. The topic of this week's Friday dialogue is India's preparedness in the age of information warfare. To discuss the topic, we have with us Major General Dhruv Katoch, Director, India Foundation, New Delhi, and the third generation Army officer from the infantry. He has edited, co-edited 8 books and regularly contributes articles to defense journals, newspapers, and magazines. I would humbly request Professor Dr. Pramod Kumar, Dean Students Welfare, Head, Department of Outreach Activities and Placements, Course Director, Urdu Journalism, and Editor, Sanchar Madhyam, to kindly welcome Major General Dhruv C. Katoch.
Thank you, Saloni. Major General Dhruv Katoch, sir. Professor Manal Chatterjee, who has joined from Dheknal. Dr. Rachna Sharma, who is Course Director of Digital Journalism. All our faculty members who have joined from different centers, regional centers, and all our students. I would like to inform Major General Dhruv Katoch, sir, that all our students have joined through their classroom. They are not connected individually. So you may notice here that only 21, 24 or some persons have joined, but practically 582 students and all our faculty members have joined this discussion through their classroom. Even the faculty members are sitting with the students in classrooms. So on behalf of the Indian Institute of Mass Communication and particularly the DG IIMC Professor Sanjay Dwivedi, I welcome Major General Dhruv Katoch, sir, to this Friday dialogue. As explained by Saloni, this initiative was conceptualized and implemented by our Director General, Professor Sanjay Dwivedi, in 2020. And the lectures of last Friday dialogue have already been published, and the new edition of Friday dialogue is shortly coming. And this lecture, which is to be delivered today, this will also be documented in a book form. Friends, today is indeed a very special and glorious day for all of us. This day, on December 16, 1971, India won the war against Pakistan after fighting for almost over 2 weeks. This day is celebrated as Vijay Divas to honor the victory of Indian armed forces over Pakistan. On this day, India pays homage to all the soldiers who defended the nation in 1971. In 1971, the chief of Pakistani forces, General Amir Abdullah Khan Niazi, surrendered to the joint forces of India and Bangladesh Mukti Bahini, along with 93,000 Pakistani troops. It was the biggest ever military surrender after World War II. Many of the students may not be knowing that how the war began in 1971. General Dhruv Katoch, sir, will definitely elaborate this. The war was triggered by a rebellion in East Pakistan against the Islamabad government. Pakistani forces were committing atrocities on the Bengalis in East Pakistan, the present day Bangladesh. It is estimated that between 3 to 5 lakh civilians were killed by the Pakistani forces then, although the British Bangladesh government puts this figure at 30 lakh. Former Prime Minister of India, Srimati Indira Gandhi, had then decided to offer refuge to people who were coming from East Pakistan. It is estimated that around 1 lakh people left East Pakistan during early 70s, before 1971. The war had started when Pakistan basically launched air strikes on 11 Indian air bases on December 3rd, 1971. In return, Srimati Indira Gandhi ordered the then Army Chief General Sam Manekshaw to launch a full-scale war against Pakistan. Finally, the war resulted in the birth of Bangladesh, which was then East Pakistan. More than 3,800 Indian and Pakistani soldiers lost their lives in the war. India also held 93,000 prisoners of war by the end of war on December 16. Those prisoners were released after the Shimla Agreement. Vijay Diwas is indeed a proud moment for all of us Indians, but we all should keep in mind that the nature of war has changed completely since 1971. What happened 50 years ago, I think, may not be practical today. Today, the wars are not fought through tanks, cannons, and rifles alone. We are in the era of information warfare, where the wars are to be fought through different means of communication using different tools. But what is India's preparedness for this new warfare is the $1 million question. And we are going to discuss this topic today. We have with us very eminent defense expert who has been Major General in the Indian Defense Force and has expertise on information warfare. I welcome you, Major General Dhruv Katos, sir, on behalf of IMC. I request you to please deliver your lecture. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the very warm introduction, Professor Pramod Kumar. I have been to the IIMC many times, and every time I come there, it is a matter of great pleasure for me and also a great learning experience. While I give off my views, I also am educated each time I interact with the faculty and with the students. Professor Sanjay Dwivedi, DG IIMC, members of the IIMC faculty, friends, namaskar. Today, I'm very happy to be here this afternoon to share my thoughts on this very interesting subject. I will give you a perspective. I will not talk too much about what happened in the Bangladesh war. I'll just give you a perspective, something which I think have been glossed over, which I need to talk about now. And I want to concentrate much more on information warfare, how we can deal with those challenges. But let me begin first with greeting all of you on the occasion of Vijay Diwas. On this day, 51 years ago, the Indian Armed Forces and the Indian nation won for themselves the biggest victory in the last 1,000 years, when in a swift 13-day operation, the Liberation War was brought to a successful conclusion, culminating with the surrender of 93,000 soldiers from the Pakistan military. This, as Professor Pramod Kumar has stated, has been the largest military surrender after the Second World War. Now, why did we go to war? What made it so necessary? And the point was, it was the brutality of the Pakistani army on the Bengali population. And it started off on the 25th of March in what was called Operation Searchlight. There is a big history behind the conflict in Bangladesh, or at that time between East Pakistan and West Pakistan. I will not go into it. But to put down what they thought was disturbances, this searchlight came into being. And what happened in Searchlight? Innocent men, women, and children were taken out of their homes and shot. And this orgy of killing, rape, and loot continued for months on end till the Indian Armed Forces, along with the Mukti Bahini, intervened militarily on 3rd December and in a swift 13-day war forced the Pakistan military to unconditionally surrender. There are very interesting stories about how that surrender also took place, which I hope some of you at least, will get the time to read. That is why 16 December is commemorated today as Vijay Divas. One, to commemorate the victory, but also to pay homage to the gallant soldiers of the Indian Armed Forces and the Mukti Bahini who fought for freedom, and for all those who laid down their lives for the motherland. On this auspicious occasion, I join all people from both India and Bangladesh in paying homage to all those who fought for freedom and who laid down their lives for the cause. Such commemoration is also important to keep alive the memory of what brutal regimes can do and to ensure that history or that such history is never repeated again. Here, I think we need to pause and think, why do genocides happen? Why is it that in some conflicts there is a failure to account for the crimes of genocide, of sexual violence against women? And if you have a look into the recent history in South Asia, it is very revealing. There is little mention made of genocides and sexual abuse of women in war, which is why there is so little knowledge available in the public domain of this dark side of history. And it is precisely because of a lack of accountability that genocides have occurred in the past and will continue to occur in the future too. Denial of information and putting forth the narrative, the correct narrative, has much to do with the way events are perceived across the world. That is why all those who profess to be the staunchest defenders of democracy across the world, they remain chillingly silent on the genocide that took place in Bangladesh in 1971. It suited their national interest to do so. Post the liberation war, when we had won our great victory and we had these prisoners in our grasp, the Pakistani military officers were not tried for genocide. Those people who were responsible for it, we did not try them. This gave an impression to Pakistan that India is a soft state. And perhaps if you go further down the line over the years, that was perhaps one of the reasons that the genocide took place later on the Kashmiri Hindus in 1989-90. Again, Pakistan thought they would get away with it. And today, as the perpetrators of the Kashmiri genocide are still at large, and are we going to look at another genocide taking place 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now? That is something which I feel all of us need to ponder over to ensure that people who take part in such heinous attempts against humanity are brought to task, are convicted, and put in jail. Now, coming down to the subject proper. Information has always been used as a tool of war since ancient times. It is not something new. And all of you who are conversant with our own scriptures, with Hindu scriptures, you will know what happened in the Mahabharata, of how the great sage warrior Drona was killed. Because he was such a great warrior and nobody could touch him, they thought of how can we weaken this man? And that is where information warfare came into the picture. And Drona was informed that Ashwathama is dead. Now, Ashwathama was his son. But Ashwathama, his son had not died. An elephant by that name had died, but they did not tell him that. And when he came to know or what he thought that his son had died, the impact on him psychologically was so great that he was left defenseless on his own, and that enabled the others to kill him in that particular moment of weakness. So this brings out two important aspects of information warfare. One, the art of deception, and two, the psychological impact of information on the mind. Both these are equally applicable today. So what are we looking at today? We need to protect our own information means, that is one, and we need to attack those of the enemy. And both of these today are standard military procedures. The third prong is deception, which is carried out in multiple ways. Not of course in the Mahabharata way, but it is carried out in multiple ways using modern means today. But what has happened today over the last, say, a few decades, I will say, there has been a rapid growth of information technology, which has led to the empowerment of the individual as never before, with information being available to the individual at the click of a button. The advent of the social media is truly empowering, but comes with a lot of negative fallouts also. Now, this has led to the fourth pillar of information warfare. The three I've already told you: protecting our information, attacking the enemy's information, and deception. The fourth pillar, and perhaps which is going to have increasing relevance as the days go by, is shaping the perceptions and attitudes of a large body of people using information as a tool. We call this perception management in some parlance. Some people also use the word psychological warfare. So now let us get on to some of these aspects which I have spoken about. One, how do we protect our information systems? Now, in the cyber domain, information travels from satellites to the ground stations. And from there, it goes to servers across the country and across the world. So we have satellites in space. We have the ground stations on the ground, and then this is connected by various means, both within the country and globally. Now, what does this enable? The satellites provide geo-mapping of the world, information about the weather and the terrain. They enable long-distance communication, and in a sense, they impact on every aspect of our life today, from education to entertainment to business and anything else we can presently conceive. So what happens if those links are disrupted? Now, if you disrupt those links, it can be very damaging for a country and can bring down, just theoretically, it can bring down your banking sector. It can bring down your water supplies. It can bring down your air networks, your rail networks. It can bring down a very large part of your education system. It can bring down your medical facilities. So what damage it can do across all domains, both in the military and in the civil sector, is tremendous. So let us see how this operates. Just recently, all of you know what happened in Delhi at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, where their servers, the hackers actually hacked the servers of the AIIMS. And then to set those servers right, they were asking for ransom. Now, I believe now that we have restored the service as far as AIIMS is concerned. But the point remains, there are vital institutions which can be targeted. And we have reason to believe that this particular hacking attack came from China. Let us take our mind back to a few years back. What happened in Iran? There we saw how Stuxnet, a malicious computer worm, damaged the centrifuges that Iran was using to enrich uranium as part of its nuclear program. So when we are looking both in peace and at war, the enemy will use all means at its disposal to gain information about us. And these are not necessarily military targets, but civilian targets as well. War then is no longer confined to the front lines. So if somebody is thinking that, okay, if there's a war, it is the troops in contact which will be impacted, those days have changed. It used to happen earlier, but no longer. Wars can now take place in depth areas. It can take place, it could actually start from a cyber attack in Mumbai or Delhi or Bangalore or anywhere. So information operations will take place anywhere over the land, over the waterways, islands, sea coast, space, and outer space. And the first attack by an enemy will most likely be in the cyber domain if you are going into war, where we could see an attack taking place either on a civilian target or a military target or both, or at a multitude of targets. So it could be the Mumbai Stock Exchange, or it could be any of our other vital economic assets. Now, that does not mean that military targets will not be targeted. Obviously, they will be targeted. But I want to draw your attention to the fact that military targets are a given. Civilian targets also need to protect themselves, because this war will encompass all forms of economic activity being targeted, all forms of social structures being targeted. It will be an unlimited, no-holds-barred war where both the military and the civilian population will get involved. So what can the enemy use? Now, here the enemy has got options which we call hard kill options and soft kill options. Now, what is the hard kill option? Now, just as an example, let us say there is a satellite, an Indian satellite in the sky. The hard kill option will be to destroy that satellite. So if that satellite is destroyed, then obviously, and if it is a communication satellite, then all that it is communicating also gets destroyed, which impacts both the military and civilians as far as the country is concerned. So those are the hard kill options. You could actually take out a command post of the army, a communication post of the army. So all those will form part of hard kill. Now, what is soft kill? Soft kill is making systems unusable through non-kinetic means. So if you can actually disrupt that link which is coming between the satellite and the ground station through any means, by spoofing or by any other means, then you have achieved what we call soft kill. So now the question arises, how do we protect our systems? So what we need as far as protection is concerned is to harden our systems, and we create within each system adequate redundancies. But there is another aspect to protection. It is simply not that we need to protect our satellites and our servers, etc., etc. How do we ensure that the enemy doesn't attack them? And one of the means of ensuring that the enemy does not attack them is to impose very heavy penalties on the enemy by telling the enemy, we can attack your systems also. That is called deterrence. So towards that end, India successfully conducted an anti-satellite, or what we call the ASAT test, on March 27th, 2019, which was announced to the world by the Prime Minister in a televised address. Now, what happened in this test? A ballistic missile defense interceptor, the Prithvi Delivery Vehicle Mark II, which was developed by the DRDO, struck and destroyed an Indian Microsoft R satellite in a flight that lasted over just half a minute. So this entire operation took just about half a minute to destroy that satellite. This test was called Mission Shakti, and it was a counter to China's ASAT test conducted about 10 years earlier in 2007. Now, what did Krishnaswamy Kasturirangan, ISRO's chairman from 1994 to 2003, have to say on this? He summarized New Delhi's concerns in September 2009 with this statement. That was well before this test. India has spent a huge sum, he said, to develop its capabilities and place assets in space. Hence, it becomes necessary to protect them from adversaries. There is a need to look at means of securing these. So this was a means. Mission Shakti was a step in that direction to ensure that our space satellites are not attacked by foreign powers. Now, why they should not be? Now, how can you prevent that? By telling the enemy, if you destroy our satellites, we will destroy your satellites. So that is how deterrence comes in. Now, I will give you another example of deterrence in the strategic sphere as far as nuclear weapons are concerned. Now, yesterday, as you would all have read in the news, we carried out the test of the long-range Agni 5 intercontinental nuclear-capable ballistic missile, which has got a range in excess of 5,000 to 6,000 kilometers. Basically, when we launch this satellite accurately at such a large distance, it simply means that you can hit any target in China. Now, what does this signal? It signals capability and is also a part of information warfare to promote deterrence. So when we are sending out a signal, this is a signal. You see, it is all done very peacefully. We haven't said we are threatening anybody, but we have just let the world know that we have a capability to launch a nuclear missile over long distances, which can travel across half the globe and hit any point at the point within a meter's accuracy. Now, that is a tremendous capability. But having that capability, there is also a need to demonstrate it and show to the world that we have it, and we have the political will to use it also. It is not that we are going to use these missiles tipped with nuclear weapons on other countries. It is simply to deter those countries from using their nuclear arsenal against us. So deterrence is important, but please remember, it is only effective if you have the requisite military might to go with it. So for us to say that we will do ABC and we don't have the military capability to back it up, then that deterrence does not work. So in the two instances which I have told you of the ASAT capability and the ICBM capability, that is deterrence. And that is also a part of information warfare. So to that extent, I would be bold to say that India's information systems are reasonably well protected today, though of course protection involves being constantly on the watch, checking and improving our own systems to ensure that they are safe from hostile attack. Ultimately, eternal vigilance is the price we have to pay, to continue to pay, to remain secure. And once we are prepared to expend our time, our effort, and our energy on these issues, then the rest of the country can continue with its economic activities and normal growth. Now, the second aspect of information warfare, that is attacking enemy information systems. Now, some of you may ask me, what are the capabilities which we have to attack enemy information systems? How can India carry out cyber attacks on other countries? What are those capabilities? Now, unfortunately, this is something which we do not discuss. Such capabilities are kept under wraps and they are never discussed in the open domain. So what are the capabilities India has or does not have will never be disclosed. People can make an intelligent guess. I will not hasten to do that here. But I do hope that India has the capacity and the capability to monitor enemy systems and to bring them down if necessary. If we have that, that would add to our deterrence capability. Now, at this stage, I would like to spend another 10 to 15 minutes on something which I think is of direct relevance to us today as far as information warfare is concerned. And here I would like to talk of the fourth prong of information warfare, shaping attitudes and perceptions of target populations, both of the home audience and abroad. How has India's performance been in shaping perceptions within the country and abroad? I would say it has been a mixed bag. We have done well sometimes, we have not done that well at other times. But that is also true for all countries of the world. It is true for the US, it is true for Russia, and it is also true for China. So such activities will be continuous. We would have to be continuously on the watch, see our weaknesses, try to rectify them. Our hostile powers, they would like to still latch on to different sets of weaknesses, impose new technologies. So this is the cat and mouse game which will continue to be played. But let us see what happens in a rough audit check of India's success or otherwise in shaping the information environment. So what does this indicate? One, we have been reasonably successful in having a broad acceptance of India's concerns to the international audience, especially on issues related to terrorism. In fact, I think we have been remarkably successful because the way the narrative has been shaped now by India on issues relating to terrorism is accepted across the globe, except by 3 or 4 countries, of which I will name China as 1, Pakistan 2, Malaysia and Turkey as 3 and 4. But beyond that, I think the rest of the world is very firmly aligned with India's narrative, which indicates a success as far as shaping perceptions and attitudes is concerned. So this is, in a sense, a success of our public diplomacy. Now, when we look at internal audiences, what has happened within India, the performance has been more nuanced. And here I would like to dwell on a few issues which are still a matter of concern. Now, the challenge really lies in the fact that individuals today are really empowered, even those living at the lower end of the economic spectrum. Each of them can carry out, I'm talking about India's poor now. When you look at your housemaid or anybody else, the rediwala who's selling fruits, etc., they all carry out digital financial transactions with consummate ease. This is phenomenal progress. They converse in social groups. They talk on Facebook. They talk on WhatsApp. And they are very well informed of current happenings in their immediate neighborhood, as well as on issues which impact the country. So now, with this information being available at the hands of an individual, there are other groups which can send information to these groups. So these individuals can be both the government and forces hostile to the government. You will have 2 sets of actors trying to put forth a narrative to the mass public. Now, some of these, of course, are only used for the good. Let us just give you 1 or 2 examples of where the benefits of digitization have been very useful, especially in the field of governance. Just take the incidence of the COVID vaccine. You know how crores of people have been vaccinated, and their digital records have been maintained. Or let us look at the Jan Dhan Awas Yojana. Look at the way bank accounts have been opened. Now, all this has happened because technology has been made available to the individual at his fingertips. So it makes it much easier as a governance tool for the government to send funds to the lowest level of, to the lowest strata of society without any middleman in between. It gives better health coverage. It gives better financial inclusion. All that has become possible, and the slippages which would take place, or the leakages which would take place, by which 80% of the money would be stolen by various actors along the way, all that is history now. The people who need the help are getting it. So that is, of course, a positive. But let us also understand the ubiquitous nature of information technology has also thrown up a range of opportunities for the misuse through disinformation, distortion of the truth, false flag operations, spoofing, spam mail, and the like, to create division and turmoil within society. Now, why is this important to understand, both as a matter of national defense and as a matter of national cohesion in society? One of the fundamentals which I would urge you to consider, each one of you to consider, is this. If society is split along multiple fault lines, it will always be exploited by the enemy in any future conflict. So for me as a soldier, I would always like to see that, okay, I am there to look after the enemy as far as the borders are concerned. But I feel the people of India need to be wise enough to the fact that internal discord is really what foreign actors will try to promote in India. And these foreign actors are not simply Pakistan and China. These foreign actors will be every single country abroad which does not desire India to be a competitor at the global level. So if India rises, we become an economic threat to many countries, including to the United States, to the European Union, and others. So India's power, India's growth will be a contested story, even by our close allies, because their economic interests may get impacted if India becomes very strong. So when you're looking at conflicts which are taking place within the country, internally, I think we need to be very, very careful and consider what that impact could be. That is one. Today, the information environment is truly global in nature, with information flows cutting across physical and artificial boundaries and impacting all segments of society. Now, this is both enabling as well as potential for misuse. The wide range and diversity of factors in the global information environment has great aggregate influence, much akin to that of a state, and more often, even far in excess of what the modern state exercises. That is the power which social groups have when they try to target a country, and India is a threatened country. So non-state actors have also made their presence felt and seek to create influence in furtherance of their objectives. So towards this end, we have influencers who are used either willingly or unwittingly to lend their names to a social cause or a movement, sometimes unknowing of the real intent of the provocateurs, and at others because of monetary inducement or being ideologically aligned to the cause. So non-state actors also use the media and exploit advances made in information communication technology to undermine governments and exert influence in furtherance of their aims. Now, why is it important to understand this? Once this has been understood, then the likes of Greta Thunberg, the social activist who talks of the environment, come out very clearly. You have people who talk of women's rights, who talk of child abuse, who talk of a whole host of issues when it concerns India. But when those same abuses are being carried out in the West, or by China, or in Pakistan, or in any of the Islamic countries, not one of them raised their voice. And the question to be asked is, if there is neutrality, if they are looking at it globally across all segments of society, I am prepared to accept it. But when India is the only one which is specifically targeted by these so-called toolkits, then I think we have a cause of concern. There are many examples which I can give, but let me just start with a few. What happened when the BJP government came to power in 2014? They came to power by the democratic process. There was no denying that fact. The people voted them in with an overwhelming majority. Now, did anything fundamentally change with the government coming in? No, there was no fundamental change. The administrative structure was the same. The police forces were the same. The Indian armed forces were the same. Why then did suddenly people start saying that this government is carrying out an attack on churches? It became a very violent attack. Every single thing, it was highlighted to such an extent by the media that the world really started believing that because this government has come in, they are actually going after church groups. Now, on this particular issue, I would like to make a statement. I actually carried out an analysis of 10 years. I did this physically, because as a defense analyst, it was part of my job to do so. And when I carried out the instances which have taken place over 10 years, that means I compared it right from 2004 till the time when all these incidences took place. Something very interesting came up. There was no rise in such cases. So what was the statistics in 2004, 2005, 2010, 2012 was the same as in 2014 and 2015. There was no change. Basically, it was the same society. So certain acts which were carried out by small little petty thieves, like somebody has taken a few 100 rupees from inside a church. It is a petty theft done. It is an internal thing. It had nothing to do with any organized violence. So why were all these instances highlighted? Now, the question was, the US president was coming for the Republic Day parade. An attempt was made to discredit India at that point of time. And it worked. It worked because the US president made a mention of it. And when he went back to the United States, he again made a mention of it. Now, by the time the truth came out, and it was put statistically across to the whole nation, too much water had flowed down the Brahmaputra and the Ganga rivers. So now we accept the fact that, okay, nothing happened. But at that point of time, it was a very serious concern. And I think instances like this can create social discord. But when you whip up such sentiments in times of war or conflict, it can be actually devastating, and it can hurt our efforts to remain strong and united as a nation when there are external threats. What has happened after that? We have seen protests on various issues. They have been fanned, they have been toolkits, they have been organized. As a defense man, I can tell you they have been organized because protests don't take place like that. You don't have hundreds or thousands of people collecting at a particular point, staying on at a particular place for days and months on end. So there is a structure behind it. There is finances behind it. There are toolkits behind it. And the aim is to disrupt and cause disharmony. Now, the cause which people are fighting for may be a correct cause. I'm not denying that. But once, even if it is a correct cause, the number of people who jump onto that bandwagon and make it into something which it is not, that amplifies the power of violence. And that is where the social media also comes in. Because the toolkits operate through the social media. The mass mobilizations, they take place through the social media. Fake messages are spread through the social media, and they create discord. A recent one, which happened during cricket, which I will just mention very quickly, was when, I think it was during the Pakistani cricket match, when the earlier ones which we had played, where we lost. And one of our bowlers, at that, every cricketer has a bad day. So one of our bowlers had a bad day that day, as it is, most of them had a bad day. Most of the team had a bad day. But he happened to be a Muslim. And suddenly virulent messages started coming out that because he's a Muslim, he has played badly. Now, the surprising thing is, where did these messages come from? When I carried out this check, at one point of time, there was a bunch of these messages, over 6,500 of them emanating from one point within Pakistan. So I think we have to be very careful, because once they come inside India, then they go to various handles. Then people mindlessly keep, sharing these images, right? And once you share it, you magnify that power from 6,500. It becomes 65,000. Then it becomes 6 lakhs. Then it goes across, So we need to be very careful whenever we carry out any forwards or WhatsApp messages. Check the authenticity. Check whether it is right. Check whether it is even logical, and also check what is the impact it will have. So getting back into what has happened post 2014, some other instances. We have seen so many protests. What happened in 2016? There were agitations by student groups who shouted slogans in support of a terrorist who was convicted for his role in the attack on India's parliament in 2001 and who was executed in 2013. I'm talking about the agitating students who were supported by left-wing and Islamist groups who raised slogans seeking the breakup of India and calling the act of execution of the convicted terrorist an act of murder. Now, can you ever imagine something like this happening? That here is a man, a terrorist, tried by a court, convicted and hanged. And then we have people coming out on the streets in his support. We have people coming out against the Indian state for killing a man who was a terrorist. So similar agitation we have also seen on various pretexts over the years. And in 2019, we come to huge protests which are organized against the Citizenship Amendment Act, which brought part of the nation's capital to a total standstill. And it peaked in February 2020 to tarnish the nation's image when the United States President Donald Trump was visiting India. So there is a purpose, there is a method in this madness. I'm not saying that people should not be opposed to the CAA or should not support the CAA. Those are opinions. But you can debate these issues in a logical manner in Parliament. You can have civil debates over these issues. You can create an environment by which these should be discussed. The streets are the last part where they should go to. But when you put them out into the streets, then we see what happens. There is a deliberate attempt to undermine the elected government. There is a deliberate attempt to undermine India's democratic framework. And there is a deliberate attempt, and this is the worst of it, to undermine India's composite cultural ethos. So what are we seeing today? We are seeing information being weaponized and used to draw crowds to disrupt normal life. This remains part of the agenda of external forces to exacerbate internal issues and fault lines. In this, segments of the opposition parties within India lend a helping hand in their bid to get back to power. I'm not saying they're anti-national, but they're thinking, okay, if this government becomes disreputed, I can get back to power. There are other ways to get back to power, because when we adopt these policies, the nation suffers. So I think the public, when we're talking of 1.3 or 1.4 billion Indians, I think we should be aware of what is happening and ensure that such activities don't place in our motherland. So the desire to shape opinions remains the key motivator for organizing mass movements against the elected government. That is a truism, and you will see it every day. Now, this suits the agenda of foreign powers who view India's rise as a potential threat to their economic interests. It is therefore incumbent on the state to preempt hostile agendas by anticipating what disruptors might do and take preventive action well in time. Now, there are certain issues which are going to come up in the future. We have seen the hijab controversy. There will be controversy over the mandal. There will be over some temples. There will be controversy over many issues. I think it is incumbent on the part of the government and civil society to anticipate what is going to come and keep themselves well informed. As far as the government is concerned, I think they need to do a great deal in shaping public perceptions through a long-term vision and with strategic patience. The underlying theme must always be, we will carry the nation together, all segments of society, but we will not permit any one segment to disrupt our harmony, to disrupt our functioning, and to disrupt our economic growth. All this, of course, is made possible because we have the armed forces at the border. But here too you see how have perceptions been shaped just recently over an incident where the Indian armed forces and the Chinese PLA had a scuffle at Yangtze. Now some people try to make it out as if it's a huge Indian defeat. I haven't understood really, because I've been in that area. I've commanded that area as a commanding general there. And this is the place where the Chinese really got a thrashing, if I can use that word. So why was that, even an agenda like that, why was that being distorted? Why was the agenda of the Director General of Military Operations of the Indian Army, who came out and gave a public press statement, which is never done by the DGMO, on the surgical strikes? So why did people say that is false? When the Chief of Air Staff gives his statement on the Balakot strikes, why do people question that? It's something which boggles the imagination. There is an agenda behind it, I've got no doubts. Because I would like to assure this audience, if a senior military officer of the rank of a lieutenant general or the chief ever comes up on the public stage and gives a statement, it will be a true statement. Nobody can pressurize him on the government or anywhere to give something which has not happened, to say something which is not true. The general will not do it. It is the credibility of the Indian Army, the Indian Air Force, and the Indian Navy which is at stake. It is the credibility of our military leadership which is at stake, and we will never do it. And I hope politicians across the political spectrum learn to respect that, because when the military issues a statement at that level, it will be correct, it will be true under all circumstances. I will disbelieve anybody, but I will never disbelieve a statement which has come out from the highest levels of the Indian Army, the Indian Air Force, or the Indian Navy. So what do we do now? I think as far as shaping perceptions is concerned, the third rung, as I had told you in my earlier remarks, we have been remarkably successful as far as the international community is concerned. The whole world is today willing to cooperate with India. All the Arab countries are with India today. The African countries are with India today. The European Union is with India today. The United States and Russia are with India today. Now, that speaks of the very strong strength of India's diplomacy and of the way we have managed perceptions in those societies, both within the media, the intellectuals, the think tanks of India, as well as our diplomats living abroad. That has been a success story. Some of you will point out there have been certain failures. Most certainly. There is no such thing which can be 100%. But the fact that we have achieved such a great deal in such a short period of time, over the last 5 to 10 years, speaks volumes of India's soft power and of India's ability to handle perceptions in foreign domains. That is not to say that those people will not be hostile to India's interests and they will not attempt to put India down. They don't want competitors. So those attempts will continue, but there will be a great deal of cooperation. And as far as our vital interests are concerned, I think all of them will be reasonably supportive of what we are trying to do on our borders, both in the maritime domain as well as on the land borders. Internally, I think we still have got a long way to go. I hope we do not see a repetition of what happened in Delhi streets on Republic Day. That is something which undermines the nation, and it undermines each one of us. Each one of us as Indians gets undermined by seeing those acts. But they can be prevented when the people of India stay together. So what do we need to do? We need to look into potential future flashpoints, anticipate what is going to happen, and have systems in place to address the concerns of the public. So if large numbers of people are going to congregate for something, whether it is a farm bill or anything else, they are congregating because they have a concern. So that is where shaping attitudes and perceptions comes in. We need to do that, be prepared for what may come, be prepared with our response, and before it happens, we should douse the flames. I think that should be something which it requires a great deal of effort, but we should be working now towards that direction. So we need suitable narratives which are gender neutral and religion and caste neutral. And these need to be propagated to get wide acceptance from all segments of society and to permit a change in behavior patterns. A proactive stance in shaping perceptions will go a long way in reducing friction in society and in addressing societal fault lines to prevent internal and external hostile forces from creating disruptions in society. This assumes importance as the spotlight will be on India now for the coming year when it takes on the presidency of the G20, or we have already taken over the presidency of the G20 now. So from now onward, till we hand over the presidency and various other summits where we'll be heading in due course of time, all these are going to be matters of great importance. There will be people who don't want India to rise. They will do their best to see that we are stalemated at certain points. But we, the people of India, need to be cognizant of that and ensure that the foreign forces don't win and we win. With that, I'll take on any questions. I may have finished a bit earlier. That'll give you more time for the interactive session. So thank you very much. Jai Bharat, Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for such an insightful deliberation. So, I would request all the students to kindly put up their questions in the chat box along with their name, course, and center. Sir, the first question we have is from Ashish Singh, a student from EJ, New Delhi. He asks, how do we tackle China's information and propaganda war?
Thank you. I think that's a very valid question as far as China is concerned, because I'm not concerned with what China is doing in the international audience. I'm not, as far as the international audience is concerned, they know what China is doing. With China, my concern is the internal audience. And we have got certain groups which are very supportive of the left. Now, I'm surprised that in a TV debate in which I was there just 2-3 days back, there was a person who was a very staunch, part of the left in West Bengal, and he was absolutely pro-China. You see, and I get very surprised as to how do people in India really really get to that extent. So, as far as handling China in the international arena, I don't think there is a problem. I think internally, we still need to address certain areas in India which are dominated by the left, which continue to support China. That is not going to be as to how I deal with those people. That is irrelevant. I think we need to deal with their support base and bring these facts home to them that, okay, this is what India is doing. This is what your leaders are stating. And I think we leave it to the public to decide, because I have a great faith in the Indian public. They know what is happening. I will never underestimate their intelligence. They know what is happening. And I also understand that certain people in the left, they do what they do on very narrow vote politics, on very narrow ground, so that they can get back to power in certain areas or something. I understand that. They may not really mean what they say, but the point is they are saying it. And that is something which needs to be addressed. But the rest of the country, I think Chinese propaganda has very, very limited appeal, both in most of India and certainly across the world. Their propaganda will appeal to Pakistan. It will appeal to perhaps Turkey and to some extent Malaysia. But the rest of the world, no. And as far as Pakistan is concerned, it doesn't really make a difference what they believe in. I hope that answers partially what I'm trying to say. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Ashutosh Ojha from Hindi Patrakarita Vibhag, Nai Delhi, he asks, sir, जिस तरह कुछ देश अपनी मीडिया का सॉफ्ट पावर के रूप में इस्तेमाल कर भारत के आंतरिक मामलों के संदर्भ में भारतीय सेना की नकारात्मक छवि करने का प्रयास करते हैं, ऐसे मामलों में सेना के द्वारा क्या उपाय किया जा सकता है?
देखिए आशुतोष जी, देखिए, जहां तक मीडिया की बात है, ये सबसे पहले तो मैं भारतीय मीडिया की बात करता हूं. जिस प्रकार का सपोर्ट भारतीय सेना को भारतीय मीडिया से मिला है 1947 से लेके आज तक, वो तो बहुत ही आउटस्टैंडिंग है. तो जहां तक मेरी अपनी बात है, हम तो यही कहते हैं कि जिस प्रकार से हमको मीडिया का सपोर्ट मिला है हर एक किसी भी वक्त, उससे हमारी शक्ति बढ़ी है. अभी आते हैं फॉरेन मीडिया को. फॉरेन मीडिया जो है वो कभी भी नहीं चाहेगा कि भारत के जो आर्म फोर्सेस है वो स्ट्रांग रहे. तो उनकी तो कोशिश यही होगी कि भारत की सेना किसी ना किसी तरह कमजोर होती जाए, क्योंकि जब भारत की सेना कमजोर हो जाती है तब वो इंटरनल डिस्टर्बेंसेस भारत में पैदा कर सकेंगे. उसको किस प्रकार से निपटना है, ये सिर्फ भारत की पब्लिक कर सकती है. आप उसका कॉग्निसेंस अगर नहीं लेंगे तो उसका इम्पैक्ट भारत के ऊपर नहीं होगा. मैंने कई आर्टिकल्स पढ़ी हैं, कुछ जैसे कि वॉशिंगटन पोस्ट लिखता है, जो बिल्कुल प्रोपेगेंडा पीसेस हैं. और अगर लोग बोलते हैं कि ठीक है ये वॉशिंगटन पोस्ट में आया है और ये सही होगा, आज मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूं जो प्रोपेगेंडा चैनल्स है, बीबीसी भी एक बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग प्रोपेगेंडा चैनल बन गया है. अगर आपने सही विषय देखना है, आप अपने न्यूज मीडिया के ऊपर जाइएगा. हमारा न्यूज मीडिया, मुझे लगता है, वो सभी इश्यूज को प्लस पॉजिटिव्स और नेगेटिव्स दोनों तरफ से ये 360 डिग्रीज कवरेज होती है. और मैं समझता हूँ यही भारत की शक्ति है.
Thank you, sir. Ashish Singh from EJ New Delhi asks, role of information warfare in Russia-Ukraine war.
Right. I think this is a very important question. And for a very long time, this information has been controlled by the Western powers. They were very strong with information. And the information which they sent out was that Ukraine is winning the war, just really to maintain the morale of Ukraine and of the European Union. Now, this war has been going on for 8 months. And every time they were saying Russia is going to stop or Russia is going to collapse, well, Russia has only grown stronger. So this part of it is a very strong, media campaign, which was launched by the West, which was launched by Ukraine. But ultimately, the truth of the pudding lies in the eating. As I told you in my talk, you see, if you want to carry out an information campaign, it is only effective if it is backed by events on the ground. There has to be an element of truth in what you are saying. Now, if that element of truth is not there, if Ukraine is not winning the war and you still say they are winning the war, then it won't work. So information will only work if there is some truth attached to what you're trying to propagate. You know, in that mass of truth, you can put in 1 or 2 lies. But you cannot put in a little bit of truth in a mass of lies. The people will get to it. This is one. The second thing was what the Russians did in very early in the war. They disabled the entire communication network of Ukraine. And that is when Zelensky appealed to Elon Musk for help. And he made his Starlinks available to Ukraine to enable them to communicate with each other. And that is still going on. So the Russian President Putin, has not been able to impact. He cannot hit the Starlink satellites because that obviously will be going outside his boundaries. He can't do that. And it is because of Elon Musk that communication systems within Ukraine are still working. But the propaganda, I think, of the West has been tremendous. It has not been that effective because it is not based on the truth. Next.
Thank you, sir. Akash Kumar asks, do you believe that upgrading our military capabilities will affect the balance of power in this region? If not, is spending on this arms race frenzy justified?
Let me give you an answer in a very oblique way. Today we have a standoff with China, but we don't have a war with China. And people have asked me, why don't you, will China attack India? Or will we have a war with China in the near future? And my response has been, war with China is inevitable. It will take place. So the next question asked is, when will that take place? And my answer is, the day China feels it can win that war. Now, if China feels that it cannot win the war within the next 10 years, or the next 20 years, or the next 30 years, it will not take place for that time. It won't take place for 100 years. But if China feels it is strong enough to take you on in the Himalayas, they will do so. That is why it is important to ensure you have the capabilities to deter China over the Tibetan Plateau. That is why you need a strong air force. That is why you need strong space capabilities. That is why you need your satellites in the sky. That is why you need your ICBMs. And that is why you need a strong army. Because once you have this, there will be no war. But if you become weak, I have absolutely no doubts that China will go to war and take control over the Himalayas. And why does China want to take control of the Himalayas? Because once you control the Himalayas from Arunachal Pradesh to Ladakh, including Nepal, which they will take, if India falls, everybody else falls, then they control the waters which flow south. And when they control the waters which flow south, they control that country. That is something which we need to remember. Arms race, well, if there's an arms race, so be it. We simply need to have enough to ensure nobody can beat us. That's all. I'm not saying that you create an army to march up to Beijing. But I'm certainly saying you should be strong enough to fight and win a war over the Himalayas and in the Indian Ocean regardless of who the enemy is. And if you have that capability, then you will be at peace. On our other flank is Pakistan. Pakistan is no longer a credible military threat to India. So I leave that aside, but Pakistan still has the potential to impose tremendous costs on India through cross-border terrorism. That is still a work in being as to, while we have stopped most of the activities, but we have not really been able to deter Pakistan in sending terrorists into India. That, I think, is still a work in being, and how we do that remains to be seen.
Thank you, sir. Rishikesh Arya asks, developments of the last 30-odd months suggest China is not invested in resolving the larger border issues through talks. Specifically, the 16 rounds of talks that have taken place to resolve the standoff that began in May 2020 in Ladakh have failed to restore the pre-2020 status quo. Even complete disengagement of troops hasn't happened. What has India's strategy been in response?
Now, while all this has happened in the last 30 months, which I concede, the point is China has never been willing to have a settlement with India on the east as far as the McMahon line is concerned, or in Ladakh where the Johnson boundary is concerned. These lines were drawn more than 100 years ago. So China is not concerned about that. They don't want this. And their aim is really to keep India under pressure. It was working earlier for China because India was, in a sense, far weaker than China economically. But more importantly, I think politically we weren't strong enough. What has changed now is politically you are very strong, and militarily you are strong enough to beat the Chinese in our area of interest. So when people say that China has got so many 4,000 aircraft and we have got so many, but the question is China has got different threats, So when I look at China, I simply see what can they put on the Himalayan borders in Tibet, right? What can they come against us in Arunachal? What can they do in Ladakh? And what can they do in the Indian Ocean? And there I've got no doubts as of today, we can take them on and we will win. That is point one. So China is getting increasingly concerned now because earlier we were not developing our infrastructure right up to the LAC. That process started post-2014, where now you are finding roads which go right up to the LAC, and where they are not going up there, they are under construction. So within 3 to 5 years, what China has been doing for the last 30 to 40 or 50 years, now we are catching up. I think perhaps within 5 to 10 years, we would have caught up. And that is something which concerns China. But I'm not concerned about China's concerns. Now, if they want to settle it, good enough. If they don't want to settle it, well, I'm prepared. It's as simple as that. You see, we would like to have peace with China, right? But we would like to have that, the LAC, as far as Arunachal is concerned, please, it is a delimited line. Please demarcate it. Let us talk together and say, okay, this is it, and fix it once and for all. Let us exchange maps. But the Chinese are not prepared to do that because they want to keep the friction alive. It gives them some sort of an option to say, okay, we'll keep India down. And their real aim, as far as I'm concerned, they're using Pakistan really as a proxy against India. Because if India and Pakistan keep fighting against each other, then China will be the big cat in the room, and it can dominate South Asia, and then it can dominate the whole of Asia, and then it can dominate the world. That is what really makes China do what it does. China desires a unipolar Asia. So if they desire a unipolar Asia, they will keep tensions alive on our border. If they desire a multipolar Asia where Japan is a pole, China is a pole, India is a pole, we can all be friends. China doesn't desire that. So unless there is a change in the thinking in the Chinese Communist Party, I don't see any change coming about in that. So India will remain deployed. We will mirror the Chinese deployment. If they put 1,000 troops there, we'll put 1,000. If they put 50,000, we'll put 50,000, right? If they go to war, we'll be prepared to fight and we'll win.
Thank you, sir. Jyotilal Martha asks, can Indian Defence Forces bring POK and China-occupied Ladakh together?
Sorry, I didn't get that. Just say that again, please.
Can Indian Defence Forces bring POK and China-occupied Ladakh together?
Okay. Basically, what you're saying is, can you get back that territory, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, as far as the Aksai Chin is concerned, which is under Chinese occupation, I don't see, under the present circumstances, any movement toward that end. It is not going to work. And the resources which will have to be put in which cripple India. So no, Aksai Chin out of the question as of now. But we can certainly hold on to our line and prevent further ingress as far as the Chinese are concerned. That is one. And we can have, over the years, adequate deterrence built in to see that they don't sort of misbehave in eastern Ladakh. That is one. As far as Gilgit-Baltistan is concerned, a military operation there will be very costly, very time-consuming, and is not recommended. But if you can create conditions in Gilgit-Baltistan on the lines they existed in East Pakistan when the Indian army moved in, then as a corollary to that, the Indian army will move in and liberate that area as well. But the fundamental underlying principle is the people of Gilgit-Baltistan will have to support you in that endeavor. And if you can get that level of support, my answer is yes, and we will do so. But my answer is also states that till we get that level of support, it would not be advisable to move in that direction.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Juhi Baveja from Digital Media Department asks, you mentioned that toolkits and fake messages are distributed over social media, but we know that the government also has a social media presence which can counter those. Are social and digital media necessary despite all these agenda-driven acts?
No, you see, when we're looking at the social media, the private player is always far ahead of the government. You know, governments don't really operate in that sense, you know. Governments are bureaucratic structures and they don't have that flexibility which, say, an organization, a smaller, leaner organization does. I'll be very frank with you, Pakistan does it very well. They have got a whole lot of these fellows existing there in Islamabad and in Islamabad, Rawalpindi area under the control of the ISI. And these fellows, they continue with, you know, with this sort of stuff, which I've seen. I've actually been studying that phenomenon, and I know on a daily basis the hundreds and thousands of messages which keep coming out from there, basically designed to sort of disrupt Indian society. So when it comes to preventing such actions coming in, I think what is required is a very agile systems within the government of India and within our think tanks, etc., to get to the truth very quickly. You see, just let us say that some information has been passed that just theoretically that riots have broken out in, you can say in Kerala. This is a fake information which has been coming out. Riots have broken out in Kerala and 1,000 Muslims have been killed, just theoretically. Now, let us say something like this comes out by a Pakistani handle and it is spread to certain other parts of India, in West Bengal and all that, designed to inflame the youth. All that we need to do is to be quick on the uptake and very, very quickly put it that in Kerala there is peace, no such incident has taken place, this is fake news. So once you bust a lie, it is very difficult for anybody to revive that lie again. The truth is the best antidote in the social media to any of these messages. And I'm a very strong advocate of the truth that whatever is happening, please put it out. You put it out first in the open domain. We are a big country, 1.4 billion people, and there will be something chutput ghatna pure desh mein har din hoti rahegi. Right? And that is okay. We don't need to get head up about it. If you look at the West, they have 100 such incidences with a far smaller population than ours. So we need to address our own challenges in our own way. And I think how we need to address our challenges as far as fake news is concerned, one, project the truth quickly and in those same media handles. And number two, educate your public. I think we as a public are so gullible that even in my circles, where are very, very informed people, you get a message when I look at it, I say, obviously, this is a bloody fake. But still, people keep forwarding that stuff. I haven't understood why you forward stuff which I think, even a semi-idiot will know it's a fake message. It doesn't happen that way. Have faith in your country. Have faith in your leadership. Have faith in your military, right? But more importantly, I think to counter that, the weapon to be used is the truth, and it can work.
Thank you, sir. Ashish Kunjan asks, data storage overseas by India, like hardware and software procured from foreign sources, or parking of huge amounts of data on servers outside India, pose a threat to your national cyberspace. Do you agree?
Any of our information means which are posted across, you see, let us say if you're using Hotmail or Gmail, etc., right? That has a security challenge attached to it. So what we need to do really is, as far as the defense forces are concerned, don't post anything of a military nature in any of those social media handles. That is one. Social media per se is not dangerous. It's a neutral media, right? It is how it is used which it becomes dangerous. Number two, as far as we are concerned, that the .in is what we should use, because that servers are in India, and they're far more secure than foreign servers. That is when you're using certain programs, etc. So that is what we should use. But ultimately, I think over the long term, we need to get our servers in India. That is the problem, and we cannot whitewash it. We haven't reached that stage yet. We are still importing a large part of equipment from China because that is the way the systems have been structured over the years. And I think we need to get over it as quickly as possible and become self-reliant in digital technology, especially in the manufacture of upper-end chips. Billions are now being invested. Those things are coming up. But I think it'll take time. Say within 3 to 5 years, we should be able to overcome most of these problems. We have snubbed the Chinese as far as Huawei is concerned. We have not taken on to the 5G network. We are developing our own, and I think that's a step in the right direction. But let us understand this, and I'll be very upfront about it. There are challenges. I agree with the individual who has asked this question, and we need to address the challenge as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Shubhanjal from IIMC Amravati asks, in today's world where cyber is often touted as the fifth dimension of warfare, is it fair to say that countries that are subjected to cyber attacks retaliate in a similar manner? Is there a possibility of escalation in these cases?
Very frankly, it depends on who is targeting and who is being targeted. So let us say if China is targeting a country in Africa or something like that, nothing much is going to happen. That country may not have the capacity and capability to do so. But let us say if China targets the United States, then the United States will certainly retaliate. So if they hit out at their facilities, then you will have a counter coming up and hitting out at their facilities also. So these attacks are going to go on. But as of now, one of the main challenges is how to determine where the attack has originated from. It is not easy. People cover their tracks very well. And if attack has come on India from China, actually the originator may be somewhere in some corner of Africa, one of the African countries. What to be indicated to us is that is the point of origin. So that level of concealment is always there. So determining the source is always a challenge. But where countries are equitably matched or they have strong capabilities and they come to know who has done it, then I think this escalation is going to be tremendous. There will be a very, very severe reaction to what has been done by one country or another. And if they again retaliate, then that escalatory ladder will go up with very serious consequences.
Thank you, sir. Rishikesh Arya asks, what should India be watchful about after the December 9th clash with the PLA in Arunachal Pradesh? In your view, will there be a repeat of such incidents in times ahead?
Very frankly, what India should do, I think we are already doing what has to be done. So I have got no concern about that. The military, the armed forces are deployed. The political authority is very strong, and all of us are synergized. So today we have the political authority in India, one. the armed forces 2, the public administrative systems 3, the state governments 4. All of them are in sync with each other. So I don't visualize any problems as far as that is concerned. We are doing the best we can, right? Obviously, everybody would like a bit more to be done, but to our own extent and capability, I think we have the synergies which have been built up, and that is good. That is one. Will more such incidences happen? Oh, absolutely. So to think that this is a one-off incident, no, they're going to happen. They've happened earlier. They happened on the 9th. They will happen again in future. And we will handle each of them on their merits as and when they come.
Thank you, sir. Nihal Kumar from IIMC Kottayam asks, sir, this may be the peak time for introducing new courses in higher education to tackle information warfare. Please comment.
I think that's a very valid observation, and I totally support it. And I'm happy to announce that, which of course Professor Pramod Kumar can further amplify. The IIMC is actually doing that now. So that course will be coming up, and it is required. And I think these courses should come up. Information warfare is the future, right? And I've told you the entire gamut, from sending a missile, that's information warfare. You're sending a message, right? You destroy a satellite, that is sending a message. Okay, now sending a message of a capability. So there are multiple aspects to it, and the advanced course is being done by, or will shortly be done by IIMC. I have seen a little bit of that syllabus. It's absolutely outstanding, and I think these students will benefit a great deal. And once it is successful in IIMC, I think other universities across the country can pick it up. Just simply propagate that syllabus. They'll do very well.
Thank you, sir. A student from ADPR department asks, if government has already been training students through separate institutes for Air Force, Army, and the Navy, so are the Indian Defense Authorities planning to train students separately for digital information warfare as well?
Very frankly, I'm not aware of what the military authorities will be doing in future. And even if I was aware, I really won't be talking about it. So what the military will be doing in future and how they will be training their people is best left for them to decide to divulge to the extent that they would like to divulge.
Thank you, sir. A student from the ADPR department asks, taking examples as Kargil and Mumbai terrorist attack, where media unknowingly leaked sensitive information to enemy through live television, what changes do you think are required in training and working of media professionals?
Oh, I think today the media has been very highly sensitized. What happened in Kargil and also in 26/11, I don't think is going to be repeated again. I think today the media is very, very sensitive and very supportive also. And they come out openly and say so. I mean, I personally have got great respect for the Indian media, all sections of it. Their stance is, I'm not saying their stance is pro-government because that'll be a totally wrong statement. I'm saying their stance is pro-India. And that is a totally different thing to saying it is pro-government or pro any political party. They stand for the Indian nation. And as the Indian Army stands for the Indian nation, they are very supportive of the Indian Armed Forces also, especially where they need to be supportive. I don't think if I'm the Army Chief or the Air Chief or the Naval Chief, I don't think I've got to, put in an appeal to the media to sort of, look into our interests. It is a given. The Indian media will always stand behind the Indian nation and behind the India's armed forces. So I think what has happened earlier is perhaps due to lack of experience, but now we need to do certain different things. We need to, from the military side, also be more forthcoming in giving out information to the media, telling them what is happening, because the public also wants to know. So I think all these things have been worked out, and I don't foresee any repetition of that happening again.
Thank you. Next question. What makes Stuxnet different from other cyber warfare attacks?
Well, you see, Stuxnet, it was something which had been planned by the Israelis for years, and it is a very, very advanced technology. It is really not in that sense. It is information warfare in a sense, but in an indirect sense, because they used a tool to disrupt a capability which Iran was trying to develop. And they did that very successfully. Stuxnet, it also sent a message to the others that software can be used really. It could be embedded into a system. Because this, I think, was a German system which I don't know how. We just don't know how the Israelis managed to inject that stuff into the system, and then it went on to into the Iranian network, and finally those reactors started moving at a particular point of time at a tremendously fast rate, and the whole system got disrupted. So these are tools which can be used, and they can be used very effectively. To if you can actually manage to inject it into satellites, etc. What technology or how the Israelis did it will remain a secret for the next 50 years at least. I don't think anybody's going to divulge that.
Thank you, sir. Taking the last question for today, Satyam Singh from EJ Kottayam asks, as you said, the Indian government has been excellent in its foreign policy, but there has been a certain sourness with almost all the neighboring countries. What's your take on that?
No, I think as far as India's relations with our neighboring countries is concerned, is pretty good now. You see, the smaller neighbors always have a concern as far as the bigger neighbor is concerned, but a bigger neighbor is there. But today, I can assure you our relations with Bangladesh are excellent. With Sri Lanka, they are excellent. With Nepal, they are so-so because Nepal, their politics is of a different nature. And their politics really, for the chap to come into power, they've got to have a certain level of anti-India stance, regardless of whichever party is there. But by and large, they're all friendly to India, all the political parties within Nepal. And the only problem which we really have is with Pakistan. I don't see that going away. But over the years, you're going to see, not that we're going to be friendly with Afghanistan. I think we'll still, Afghanistan-India relations will still be hostile. But I can assure you, the India-Afghanistan equation will be better than the Afghanistan-Pakistan equation. That much will come about. So it is, as far as our neighbors are concerned, I think we're doing very well. Even our neighbors, our immediate neighbors, including Myanmar and the island countries, we are doing okay. And I must compliment our foreign policy for it. They've done an outstanding job.
Thank you so much, sir, for patiently answering all the questions. Now, I would request Dr. Rachna Sharma, Coast Director, Digital Media, to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
A very good afternoon to all. Today, we discussed the age of information warfare. When we re-look at the history of media and wars, we find that whenever technology advancement happened, we got new terms like we remember Vietnam War was the first televised war, and when it came to Gulf War, it used to be known as video game war because of live coverage of the war. Today, as Major General Katoj rightly said, war is no longer confined to the front lines, like we discussed with communication levels, that digital media has blurred all the lines. It also seems relevant for the front lines. The front lines are no more limited to the borders and the frontiers. Now the wars are penetrating in the civilian life spheres as well. So he talked about the collaboration between military and civilian body, and particularly we are able to understand what hard skill options and soft skills options are today. So thank you very much, Major General Katoj, for providing us with the insight, not only in terms of what we think in terms of digital media is, but beyond that, in the deeper sense that how military operations are now shifting towards the digital age, and it is the information warfare when it comes to the future understanding of warfare today. So thank you very much, sir. I provide this opportunity to thank you, to thank our DG IMC Professor Sanjay Dwivedi, who inspired us to go for this program, to have the outline of this program, which asked us to go beyond the classroom teaching. And it is how we are actually providing our students with a holistic skill development, you can say. I thank ADG Mr. Ashish Goyal, who always has been a support for us for holding such programs. Professor Pramod Kumar, HOD Outreach, who so meticulously not only inspires, but also you prepare the program. And he thinks upon the line that, okay, which important aspect could be brought in the program line. So I thank a lot Professor Pramod Kumar for outlining, for thinking about, for ideation to implementation of such a wonderful session. Thank you so much, sir. I also thank our senior professors and regional directors, Professor Mrinal Chatterjee, our senior professor V.K. Bharati, Professor Anil Soumitra, who joined us for this session. Also my colleagues who have joined the session from New Delhi Center as well as the regional centers. Moderator of the session, Ms. Saloni Saini. All the team members of Outreach Department, IT Department, Social Media Department, and all the students who actively participated to make this session a success. Thank you so much for being here and to join us. Once again, I will thank Major General Dhruv Katoj for giving us insight into the program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.